Candice, you were talking the other day on social media about something about bringing a woman peace rather by, I guess, extracting her out of her masculine phase or masculine arrow, however we're referring to that. Can you explain what that means?
So I saw this quote, and it's been interpreted 1,000 different ways, but I think the first principle of it rings true for everyone, which is a soft man makes a hard woman. So we have all of this criticism on women that are in their masculine that are trying to compete with men, and it's how can I be a boss bitch? How can I create my own company? I'm going to put off getting married, put off having kids. None of that actually matters. What matters is competition and acquiring, and I would feel like those are typically more male traits instead of nurturing and being and surrendering and having that softness and openness and kind of attracting versus going after. I think that's the difference between the masculine and the feminine. But if you have men that aren't showing up, they're not providing. And I like to distinguish between just like finances and providing energetically, whether it's through like your faith or your security, or it could be finances. I think it's more that unwavering steadfastness that you want out of a man. So if you can't have a man that's showing up in a way that makes a woman feel safe, then she tends to say, okay, well, this is all on my shoulders and I have to do it. So fuck him, fuck all guys. And I'm just going to have to be everything for myself.
Right.
And we're not meant to do that. Like historically, I don't think anyone is supposed to be on all of the time, let alone a woman. Like we're typically not the conquerors. So then you have this woman that's in her hyper masculine. So most women, traditionally speaking, want a masculine man. So they go after what they want, but now you have two alphas in a situation, and then that stubbornness comes out ahead. So unless he can be in a place where he convinces her that she's safe and she can kind of put down her armor, then that relationship's never going to work. So then she tends to find soft men that she can trample all over, but she doesn't want to be with that kind of guy. So it's this never-ending cycle, essentially, that we're kind of stuck in.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, to be honest, that we've gotten to this point. It's because it's so, I guess, the results are so polar that typically people, when confronted about this, even if it's just in casual conversation, will become defensive and retreat to their corner and be like, well, women are just all bitches, or men are just all weak these days. And like, I'm sure from their perspective, there's some truth to that statement, right? Because you know, reality, our perception is reality, but, but that's not how you solve problems, right?
No.
Like if your house is on fire and everybody sits around and it's like, you know, fire sucks, dude. It's like, yeah, so does losing all your shit. It's like, yeah, it does suck. Yeah. Maybe we should put this fucking fire out at some point. I wonder, you know, well, let's go back a little bit. Where do you think this started? Because I'm not sure that it matters specifically. It's not to assign blame or anything like that, but I do think when you're diagnosing a problem, it's good to know what the history of the problem is so you can kind of work backwards, right?
So my understanding is it's kind of an overcorrection from when women didn't have a choice, right? Like there was only one path, and that was the trad path, and you had to be a wife, had to be a mom, weren't allowed to work,
You said trad traditional, right?
Right, yeah. So that was the only path. And of course, there are some women that thrive in that condition, and there's other women that want some kind of hybrid or alternative lifestyle to that. So an overcorrection to not having a choice was to kind of demonize the family and demonize being a mom, right? Like, oh, you're just a mom, you don't work. That's embarrassing, essentially. That's not worthwhile. So then you had the 2000s, and I think that was the girl power era. You know what I mean? It was the Spice Girls. It was
Paris Hilton.
Right. Like you just like be your own woman. You don't need anyone else. And I think that I mean, it's not true. It's just like fundamentally not true. We're social creatures. We need each other. I think the whole point of this thing we call life is to find relationships that make meaning for our existence. So to just completely discount the other sex as worthless and useless is going to be a problem. And then you see this now. I had Stephen Shaw recently on my podcast, and he was saying that out of all of the childless women and all of the women that aren't married, like something like 80 or 90% of them, that wasn't what they wanted. It was like, oops, this accidentally happened. And it was because in the interview of his documentary, all these women were like, I'm just going to put off finding the right person.
Yeah.
I'm going to put off having kids. My job comes first. I need to be settled first. It was kind of instilling doubt within these foundations that typically were all that we had. So it was putting value where it, I guess, is more meaningless typically.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the origin. And then it just, I don't know, I think it got exacerbated because all we do is point fingers at one another instead of just taking accountability. So I can say, and this is just personal anecdote, I'm definitely someone that struggles to get out of my masculine. Like that's where I'm at. It's, you know, part of my nature and then part of my upbringing. So I do a lot of work to learn how to soften and trust and not feel like I have to be my own defender all of the time. Instead, I could, you know, blame and say it's all these men in my life and they did this, that, and the other. But is that going to make me happy at the end of the day? Yes or no? And it's like, what do I want to attract and what kind of, I don't know, woman do I want to be? So like starting with yourself instead of pointing outward.